Your warm-up is on the screen. Today's prompt is write one thing you learned or one question you have about yesterday's lesson on reading newspaper articles. You can use your phone to scan the QR code underneath the question and submit your answer that way, or you can type in the link that is below that. Both ways will get you to the form where you submit your answer. Let's take a look at the responses and see if there's anything we need to clarify. Wow, you learned a lot yesterday. These are interesting. I see that many of you really enjoyed the writer's opinion on his favorite team. Here's a question someone has. How do we know the writer is telling the truth or just what he thinks is right or wrong? That is a really good question. Would anyone like to answer it? Dahlia, go ahead. Yes, that's a good point. News reporters are supposed to report objectively. That means that they're not supposed to pick sides when they're telling the news. What else? Aman? Yes, check to see if you're on an opinions page or whether the article says editorial at the top. Both of these mean that it's the opinion of the writer, not straight, unbiased news. Good. Does everyone understand how newspaper writing works? Today we are going to practice our reading skills on one of my favorite short stories. It's called The Storyteller, and it's by H.H. Munro, who published it under the name Saki. Some of the same newspaper article reading strategies will help you in literature. Today's objective is to learn new vocabulary in context and practice predicting and responding to the reading as we go along. We will also work on our writing in response to literature, including an introduction to a part of speech called adverbs. A good pre-reading strategy is to preview some of the vocabulary that is coming up in the reading. You generally will only see vocabulary previews in the classroom from your teacher or in a textbook. There are not going to be vocabulary lists before every newspaper article or blog post you read. But in the classroom, it's a really good way to build the vocabulary you need to take on articles, blog posts, research, and fiction in everyday life. So take advantage of every vocabulary list you see in class. Take a moment to look over these words. Put a check mark next to each word you already know. You may not know any of them yet, but that's what this activity is for. I'll give you a couple of minutes to read through. Okay, let's go through the words together so we know how to pronounce them and we can clarify any questions. I'm going to read the word aloud and you are going to repeat it. Then I'll read the definition and use it in a sentence. As we're going through the list, have your pencil in your hand to mark any word in the definition you need help with or any definition we need to come back to when we finish going through the list. Ready? Sultry. Hot and humid. It's usually used to describe the air or the weather. Sentence. Everyone in the village moved slowly in the sultry summer afternoon. Emphatically. In a forceful way. Sentence. Mrs. Coulter emphatically insisted that her students do their homework. Does anyone have any questions about the vocabulary? None? Wow. So this vocabulary isn't all the new words you might see in the story. Feel free to circle any word you are uncertain of during the reading. Make your best guess and then check yourself later. The words on this list are written in the order they appear on the story to help you quickly find a definition if you need it. One other thing you'll see in this story is bolded words. Those words are not related to the vocabulary sheet, but you may see one or two of them on the vocabulary list. As we read together, pay attention to the bolded words and try to figure out what they all have in common. We'll talk about it more when we finish the story. Now, that vocabulary list was a pre-reading strategy that we'll practice often in this classroom. Now we're going to look at a during reading strategy that will help you interact with the story. A reading response journal is a way of interacting with the story by yourself. This is a strategy you can use for the rest of your life. This sheet has a list of prompts or sentence starters. As you read, you occasionally, sometimes pause, pick a prompt from the list, and write down your thoughts about what you're reading. This is meant to be fast, so don't worry about grammar and perfection. We'll read the story aloud, and when I stop and say reader's response, you pick a prompt from the list and write down your thought. You'll find that you're having thoughts even though you didn't realize it. We all do. This is just a way to capture that thought, like taking a picture. For example, if we were reading Mary Had a Little Lamb and I asked for a reader's response after the first verse, which is, Mary had a little lamb whose fleece was white as snow, and everywhere that Mary went, the lamb was sure to go. A student might write down in a response journal, to have a lamb follow me around everywhere would be a little strange. Cute, but strange. Good reading responses show the reader engaging with the story by predicting, challenging, or connecting. You can challenge a text by not liking the characters or the author's choices. You can connect by relating what you read to what you know in life, a personal experience, another book you've read, or a movie you've seen. This is also an excellent pre-writing activity if you're going to have to write about what you read. You will be writing about this story after we read it. Good readers often make predictions or guesses about what's going to happen next in the story. My own family listens to audiobooks when we're traveling. We pause and predict out loud to each other what we think is going to happen next. Then we talk about why it's a good prediction or not. Sometimes we're right, sometimes we're not, but we're definitely engaged with the story. Here's the second verse of Mary Had a Little Lamb. I'll read it aloud, and then you will write a reader's response as practice.